Hi, Katzcradul here. Today I'd like to share with you my recipe for pecan sour cream pound cake. I've had this recipe since about probably about 1993, so I've been baking it for a while, and it's wonderful. It's one of the few recipes that I didn't develop myself, although I have tweaked it just a little bit. I have made it for lots of different people, and I haven't met anyone who doesn't like it. Of course, will post the recipe for you below in the more info section, and if you have any questions, you can of course leave those in the comment section. Here I have a bowl that I have put most of my dry ingredients in, and one of the things that I'm doing a little different in the recipe is I'm using powdered eggs. That's the yellow that you see, and I have also substituted some ground pecan meal. I just ground it up in my food processor for some of the flour. I'm using powdered eggs today because I have only one little laying hen right now. I've got two more that are about to lay, but I don't want to use my fresh eggs in baked goods when dehydrated eggs would serve just as well, and they'll work just fine in this application. Here is the bundt pan that I have greased and floured. Here's how I've processed the pecans in this little mini chopper, and it grates them up just great. I've had this little mini processor for a long time, and it's very handy. I'm going to use water in the recipe to reconstitute the eggs, so when I'm putting in the liquid, I'll add the water for the eggs as well. Pay no attention to the bananas. They have no application in this recipe. I'm going to use those to make something else for you that I think you'll find really exciting and delicious. So let's get on with this cake. In the mixing bowl, I have my butter and my eggs, which I'm going to cream, and then I'll begin incorporating the dry ingredients and then the water to reconstitute the eggs. Of course, you whip the butter and the sugar until it's nice and fluffy, and then we will alternate between adding the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients. Now, one of the things I store in my food storage is orange peel. I save all the peel from oranges when I can them, and they dehydrate beautifully. I just put them in a jar. I rehydrate them in boiling water, and then I mince them up just as if they were fresh orange peel. It works just terrific. So I'm going to begin mixing up the cake. Here I'm showing you the organic extra virgin coconut oil that I ordered from Nature's Approved. I'm very pleased with this coconut oil. It comes in a 1-gallon container, and it's perfectly sealed. It has a little pull type rim that you pull off. I used it actually to grease my bundt pan, and then I have sprinkled in there some of those finely minced pecans that will actually end up being on the top of my cake. There's my batter, and it just looks like beautiful. It looks like butter pecan ice cream. And so now I'm going to spread it very evenly in my bundt pan, being very careful not to get it on the sides if I can help it. You can make this in like a fluted bundt pan. This is called a tube bundt pan, but you can make it in one that's fluted, and I often do, and I do the same thing. Just grease it, flour it, and then sprinkle the pecans in the bottom. Oftentimes when I use a tube pan, I put a piece of foil under it in the oven too, just in case anything were to run out. And here's the cake after it's baked. You can see I turned it over. The pecans are on top. Often for a bundt cake, the prettiest side is the top as it comes out of the oven, and usually I leave the top up. But since I had the pecans sprinkled on the bottom of this pan, I wanted them to show on the top because they're going to be real pretty once I ice it, and I will show you how to turn it as well. One of the things interesting about this bundt cake is there's not much leavening in it. There's only a little bit of baking soda in it, but it still rises up nicely, and in my opinion this is the most delicious bundt cake I've ever made. When you go to turn it out of your pan, you want to be sure to run a knife around the inside of the tube. You also want to run it around the bottom of the tube pan where the cake sits flat up against the pan, because you want it to release nicely. If you wait about 10 or 15 minutes after it's come out of the oven and cool slightly, it'll pull away from the sides of the pan and be a lot easier for you to get out. But you still want to run a knife around the outer ring, the tube, and the bottom of the pan. The cake is too heavy to turn just by using your hands, so I really recommend that you use a styrofoam plate that you I'll show you how to cut a hole in it right here. I originally narrated this video, but when I found out, I originally just had the narration on the video, but when I found out this new mic worked better, I decided to go overlay it here. So here I've cut an X in a styrofoam plate. You just turn it over the tube like that, and then you put your hands firmly against the styrofoam plate, and then you turn it over. Of course, you will have run your knife around the bottom so that it'll release easily. Now the cake is on the plate. Then what you do is you slide your hand under and then just move it to your cake plate. You don't have to flip it at all now because we wanted the pecan side up. Here I've made a simple icing with powdered sugar, a little lemon juice, and some more of the minced up orange peel. I'm going to taste it to make sure it's just right. Sometimes a little pinch of salt in there with the powdered sugar kind of takes the edge off the sweetness, but this was just fine with the lemon juice. And I'm going to show you how I drizzle it on the cake. You don't want this too thin, but you also want it to be able to drizzle, so you can tell if it's right by lifting it up on the spoon. Yeah, and this is perfect. And I just kind of do in and out and in and out. Some people do it all different ways, but I'm kind of obsessive compulsive, so I just run it back and forth. It kind of makes like a sunflower pattern. I'm taking a meal to a family who is the wife had chemo the day before I took this meal, and you can see the carrots there, the carrot tops. I baked them a chicken and made a nice pan of carrots and some roasted potatoes in this cake, and they were really tickled to get it. So the cake was just kind of the unexpected for them. They knew I was bringing a meal, but the husband especially was really glad to get a good dessert. You see how easy this goes on. You just go back and forth until you get it covered. And I let some drip down the center. See, here's some dripping down the center. And then I also try to get some to drip down the sides, and you'll see how I take the spoon to the edge and it'll cause it to drip down the side. This icing is a little tart, and it's a nice juxtaposition to the richness of the pound cake. If you've had pound cake before, you know it can be kind of heavy and kind of rich, and the little bit of the citrus taste from the lemon juice in the powdered sugar just makes it really nice. It's kind of fun to do this. You feel like a kid when you're drizzling this and getting it everywhere. It's really good. I'm not really a big fan of pound cake because I think they're kind of heavy and they dry out really fast. But this happens to be a good one. I hope you try it, and I hope you like it. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments section. Katzcradul.